This is a 16-port powered USB hub by Acasis, and in case you're interested, the model number is HS716MG. Now, there are many things that I like about this hub, some things that I wish were different, so I'm going to tell you all about it. Now, if you decide to pick this up, it will set you back just about $71. Now, there might be changes in the price, there might be offers, it might be on sale, who knows. So make sure that you check the links in the description down below. These are affiliate links that will help the channel if you use them, so thank you in advance. And use them to make sure that you always have the best possible price at any given moment. So there's a lot to like about this USB hub. For starters, the build quality is excellent. It is made of metal, like aluminum alloy sort of thing. So it helps with cooling because, you know, USB hubs tend to warm up a little bit over time, especially when you have many devices connected, especially one like this that has 16 ports. So it would get warm, but the aluminum build, helps to dissipate a lot of that heat. Now, it is light, but not super light. It is just hefty enough so that when you have a lot of devices connected, it's not going to tip over easily. So that's really cool. Now, I really like that all 16 ports are equally usable. Now, when you shop around for USB hubs, usually what you see is that some ports are slower, other ports may be quick charge, but then the rest of the ports have different uses and whatnot. So I like that all of the ports here are just equally usable, which means that you don't have to really think about which port you're going to use at any given moment. You can simply use whichever port is available to connect your device. Another thing that I like is that each port has its own button to turn it on or off. And this not only turns off the data, but it also turns off the power. And not only that, but what I really like about these buttons is the fact that they are analog. What do I mean by that? I have had other hubs that also have a power button for each port, but those are digital, meaning that you have to press it once to turn it on. But if you want to turn it off, you actually have to press and hold for a couple of seconds, which I really find annoying. But this is not the case with this hub. This is analog, meaning that even though right now it is completely disconnected, if I press on the button, it is effectively going to change whatever power it had, meaning that if the power of this port in particular, which I press right now, was on, because I press it, it's now going to be off, and it's going to reflect that new state as soon as I plug it in. So in short, analog buttons are great because you don't have to press and hold in order to power them off, which is great. Now, the one little caveat with that is that you cannot really tell whether or not the switch is in an on or off state, because once you press it, it goes back to its original height. So there really is no way to tell which one is on or off unless the port itself is powered. Now, on the plus side, each port also has an LED light that lets you know whether or not the port is on. And this light, as opposed to other hubs that I have tried, it is very easy to see. So there's that. Now, in the box, of course, you get everything you need to get started. It comes with two USB cables, one of which is USB-C and another is USB-A. So whether you need to connect it to a USB-C port or an old computer with, older computer with a USB-A port, then you have your options. It also comes with a power brick that supports 96 watts of charging power. Now, for the size of the hub, or rather for the amount of ports that it has, I think that 96 watts is pretty much adequate. Each port supports up to 7.5 watts of charging, which is not ideal. I mean, it's not really fast charging, but that's the amount that each individual port can support. All of them do, by the way. Like I said, all 16 ports are just as equally usable. However, if you do the math, 96 watts would allow only about 6 watts maximum per port, if you would happen to use all of them at the same time with the same amount of requirements. So that is a very low probability. It is very unlikely that you will have all 16 ports using devices that require a lot of power. But if that's you, then you might want to look at another hub. But again, like I said, it is very unlikely for the average user to actually need that much power for all of the ports at the same time. So if you happen to plug in, for example, a hard drive, a mechanical hard drive, maybe you're charging your phone on one of the ports, then those ports would actually get 7.5 watts. Then the rest of the power capacity of the charging brick would be distributed among the other ports that require less power. So all in all, like I said, I believe that the charging brick is pretty much adequate. Now that brings me to the things that I wish were a little bit different with this USB hub. After all, it is not perfect. Let's start with the ports. Now, like I mentioned, all 16 ports are equally usable, which is great. However, I would have liked if at least 4 of these ports were actually USB-C instead of USB-A, because let's face it, times are changing and most of our devices are now coming with updated to USB-C. So if you have a ton of USB-A devices or USB-A cables, then this is fine. However, like I said, most of the devices nowadays ship with USB-C cables. So it would have been nice to have at least 4 of these 16 ports to be USB-C. And on that note, I really would have liked these ports to also be, power delivery compatible. Now, I understand the challenges with that. After all, the cables that are included are USB-C and USB-A, but both are to USB-B, which is kind of an old standard. Now, it is good enough for transfers of up to 10 gigabits per second. However, it is not compatible with power delivery, and it would have been pretty ideal to have a power delivery USB-C compatible port that would be the one to connect to your computer and take advantage of the charging brick, being able to charge your MacBook if you are using a MacBook or any other laptop that charges via USB-C. Now, like I said, I understand the challenges with that. After all, the charging brick would have to be much more robust if it would, be able to provide power delivery to your computer, as well as provide power delivery to a few of the ports, and then a higher charging speed to the rest of the ports. So I'm guessing that a charging brick, just kind of eyeballing it for, in a manner of speaking, the charging brick would probably have to be around 250 watts or so. So that would evidently bring the cost up by a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much the only things that I wish were different about this hub. Also, like I mentioned, the analog switches, they don't really have a way or a visual cue of whether or not they are on or off. That can be also a good thing because it is actually very good looking, because you don't see, all those uneven buttons. So I guess there's that. So again, not a deal breaker. None of the things that I wish were different are deal breakers by any means, or at least not in my use case. But I don't know, they might be deal breakers for you, so that's why I mentioned them. But yeah, so a very straightforward device, a very useful device, very high quality. I really like the 𝚑𝚘𝚕 brand. I have an NVMe enclosure that I've been using for almost 3 years by now. And I can vouch for the brand because they do have really good high quality products. So I really like that. Again, also about this product. So yeah, this is the 𝚑𝚘𝚕's powered USB hub, 16 ports, all equally usable. And this is it for now. I hope that this video was helpful. And until then, may God bless you all. If you're sick and tired of seeing that activate Windows license, or you're thinking about setting up your own Windows server at home but were put off by the cost of a license, then you might want to go to keysfan.com to check out their low prices on 100% legal Windows licenses. And you can get an even better deal by using code JTE50 to get 50% off your Windows licenses. And if you're thinking about buying an Office license, then you can use code JTE62 to get, you guessed it, 62% off any Office license. So go to keyfans.com, link is in the description down below.